I can't believe that I'm about to introduce the gentleman I'm about to introduce. Last night at St. Patrick's Cathedral, one of the great, I suppose, symbolic occasions of the ecumenical movement among Christians took place when the Archbishop of Canterbury met with his primate of the Church of England, called on Cardinal Cook, who was Roman Catholic Archbishop of New York, and they prayed together for the future of the ecumenical movement. And this was the last official act of the Archbishop of Canterbury before he returns to England. I assume his visit tonight is unofficial, but we are honored to have him here, the Most Reverend Dr. Michael Ramsey, the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Good.
Very nice to meet you.
I'm very glad to have this chance of a discussion with you.
Your Grace is correct, I assume. Yes.
If you like.
All right. I have the strangest feeling in speaking to you because I played you once. I know that sounds strange, but once I was in a summer stock production of Richard III, and the Archbishop of Canterbury has a role in that.
Oh, he has indeed. Yes,
Yes, I had lines like, "A messenger awaits, what news?"
Yeah.
And, it was not the best part, but it was worth doing, I think. Where shall we begin? Shall we talk about church attendance? They say it's off in England.
Yeah. It's not off. It's now remaining, much as it's been for the last few years. And of course, there had been a very big drop in England, undoubtedly. My guess is that in America, you're about beginning to have that drop now. These things go in cycles. There's the great growth of secularism in the modern world, and the fact that our Christian civilization is rather old and tired and stale. But I can say this, that where there is a church going, it's a church going with a far deeper conviction. We've got congregations in England of most deeply convinced Christians holding together and serving the community, and it's the quality of our church life that one cares about, whether it's in England or in America.
So you don't put that much stock in attendance figures?
Well, I'm grieved, of course, at a falling away of religion, but nothing's achieved by being mournful about it, and I prefer to rejoice in the very impressive quality of the Christian fellowships that we have got.
How do you feel about the person who has no religious connection, or at least no church-going affiliation, but feels that he has a relationship with God that he can have privately in his garden or in his study? Or
well, of course, a relationship with God ought to link a man or a woman with other people who've got a relationship with God. And if the religious fellowship is missing, there is something missing in the God relationship. Of course, it's very often the fault of the organized churches that there are people, sincerely religious, who are yet aloof from them.
When you had this meeting with Cardinal Cook last night, it was last night, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
It was considered a historic meeting, and let me ask you this. The word is there such a word as ecumenism, or is it ecumenicalism?
Ecumenism is a word usually used.
Is it? Could you explain what that is first, and then tell us what happened?
Ecumenism means the Christian outlook that thinks in terms of the total Christian community in the world, that total Christian brotherhood within which all the churches are, the attitude that looks beyond the boundaries of my own particular church and to realize my brotherhood with all Christians, and to try to give the best expression to that in acting and working together as fellow Christians.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why is it that that you mention a brotherhood with all Christians. I would think that by believing in God, one would feel a brotherhood with all people, be they Christians or whatever.
Certainly.
I'm sorry, I hate to...
Certainly, a Christian feels the common humanity of all people, but as Christians, we've got to bring something to the world, and that is our own definite belief, conviction, way of life, which we've got as Christians. And as Christians, we hold together as the thing that we believe that we can offer to the world, you see. Just while I share my common humanity with every other human being, I don't share with every other human being necessarily the true way of life and the true convictions, you see, and that's what we want to bring to the service of mankind.
I must
You
interrupt
really
you
do
because
believe
we
that
are
that is the truth. I mean,
jammed up against a
it's just
station break. We'll
yeah.
be right
Oh,
back.
all these ads.
Please hold on. Now we are back. You were just, did you two resolve your differences during the during the break, or were they
there isn't any
differences?
difference, you see. We're all human beings, and there's a brotherhood of the whole human race, but there is nonetheless a difference between Christians, communists, atheists, good people, bad people, and so on. And within this whole human race, which we all love and care for, there must be people who stand for something, you see. And
Yes,
as Christians,
but I mean,
as Christians, we do stand for something
I mean-
distinct from what atheists, communists, or Buddhists stand for, you see. But I
it's interesting
take
that you
your- I
grouped them
take your
together.
point.
That's very
And
interesting.
that also illustrates the things that are different.
But you do realize, I mean, I was curious, as the Archbishop of Canterbury, if you do feel that there are, in fact, many ways of worshiping God, and each one is as valid as the other. You happen to have chosen your way, but you do feel that there are many ways.
Well, there are many ways, and there can be elements of truth in all of them. But I mean, the question is, for instance, is Jesus Christ the true, final, perfect revelation of God?
For some people.
Well, either he is or he isn't. If he is, then it's important that we should bring people to realize it.
I think you're asking a very an impossible question. I mean, you can't
No,
ask
it's not
one.
impossible. It's so simple.
Well, you
It's such
can't
a
ask one
simple
religion
question.
to admit that it has part of the truth, but that some other one has
But
the rest
wouldn't
of
it
the
be
truth.
beautiful if each religion could say, this is the way I've chosen, but it is conceivable that Buddha did exist
Well,
also?
put it like this.
These are very naive questions, I know.
There's truth in Buddhism, there's truth in Hinduism, there's truth in Islam. Yet, I believe that Jesus Christ is the perfect revelation of God, the full and flawless image of God, so that Jesus Christ is the true fulfillment of all the different world religions, though there's truth in all of them.
And feeling that, you feel that it is the duty of those who believe that way to convince other people that that is the truth.
To
Is that correct?
combine a great respect for that truth that they've got hold of with an insistence that Jesus Christ is the truth. Now, that doesn't mean being arrogant ourselves in relation to them, because it isn't ourselves that we commend. I don't commend myself. I commend Jesus Christ, whose servant I am. I'm his servant.
May I ask a question now? Archbishop, you've taken positions, very strong ones, I believe, on abortion and capital punishment and homosexuality and divorce, to name a few.
A few, yes.
And how has this affected you among your colleagues, and why did you feel that those specific things needed reform?
Take, for instance, as a Christian, I believe that capital punishment is wrong because it devalues a human life. Homosexuality, I believe that while homosexual acts are sinful, I believe them to be sinful, yet I thought that the laws against homosexuality didn't help people who wanted to be helped to get the help which they need, and thus in the interests of justice and compassion, I was in favor of a change in those laws. On the question of abortion, the line I take as a Christian is one that many of my fellow Christians I know take, that the human fetus is sacred. Wouldn't actually call it a person, but the potentiality of an eternal life. And being sacred, I would say that the human fetus can only be destroyed if the life and serious health of the mother is in jeopardy. And I would draw the line there on the abortion question as against what we call the social clause, you see. But those are just illustrations of different lines that I've taken.
I see. Now, when you spoke with Cardinal Cook, did you sense any irreconcilable areas between your church and the Church of Rome?
He and I both know that there are big differences, like the infallibility of the Pope, like certain dogmas concerning the Blessed Virgin, like the claim of the Roman Catholic Church to be itself the one Catholic Church in the world. But it's a question of the proportion of things, and increasingly Roman Catholics and Anglicans and Protestants are finding themselves wanting to emphasize the beliefs which they share and to witness together on the basis of them, while realizing that there are still unresolved differences.
Can you envision a time in any distance in the future in which all churches would be one?
I don't envisage them all being under one central organization, but I visualize them being one in mutual recognition, full communion, a common faith, and just complete uninhibited brotherhood. That, I think, is the ecumenical goal that we would all share.
Why do you think the phrase "God is dead" gained currency in the last couple of years? Why is it appropriate to our time?
The God is dead idea, it represented a kind of religious malaise, a sickness in religion. A lot of people's religion was sick and stale because their image of God was stale and dead. And the theories about God being dead, which I think are philosophically valueless theories, were giving the expression of this inner malaise in the religious situations.
How do you feel about people who say the church has no business getting involved in civil rights and the ghetto and so on? That the church has certain other values. Church, it should preserve certain beliefs. It should, preachers who talk about civil rights and such things are wasting the time of their
I believe
congregations who came there for religion itself.
Our guide should be the two great commandments, the love for God and the love for our neighbor. Well, now, God is a God of righteousness, and we aren't loving him and serving him properly unless we can care greatly about underprivilege, injustice in human relations. And I would say working for justice between the rich and the poor and different races and so on is a part of our service of God. But at the same time, I wouldn't substitute philanthropy for our total responsibility to God, and the church both has to be serving humanity on the level of all human needs, and at the same time bringing men and women to the knowledge and love of worship of God himself. And though we're concerned with everything that goes on in this world, we're also concerned with heaven, which is the goal we hope for all of us, you see.
Can you have an atheist as a friend, or do you have?
Oh, I've lots of atheists who are friends. I regret their atheism, and they may lament my Christianity, but we can be friends.
Let's see. What, can any young man who is born in England hope someday to be Archbishop of Canterbury?
Well,
he can hope, but I mean, can he achieve the...
I would say that that if he hopes for the job, he's probably very misguided, because it's a very, very difficult job indeed that I don't think anybody would ever aspire to who knew what it was like.
If I were to wonder tomorrow morning or a week from now in the middle of the day, I wonder what the Archbishop of Canterbury is doing now. What would I...
Well, goodness knows, he does such a variety of things. You would like to know. Well,
let's say between 1 and 3 in the afternoon.
Between 1 and 2 in the afternoon, he might be having a little siesta, upon which a whole hard day's work depends. That's a bad question. But what does he do in general? He looks after a diocese, like any other bishop, though he delegates a good deal of that responsibility. He's the presiding bishop in the Church of England and does a lot of giving leadership in the general affairs of the Church of England. He's also the presiding bishop within the worldwide Anglican Communion, and that's a family of Anglican churches, including the Episcopal Church in the United States. Now, the Archbishop of Canterbury is in no sense a pope lording it over them. They wouldn't tolerate that for a moment, but he is a presiding bishop amongst equals, and that is, in that way, he does involve himself, for instance, in the Episcopal Church here in the United States, and comes on visits of friendship, fellowship, helping them.
Very good. But between 1 and 2, it's a nap.
Well, yes,
I see.
Yes.
It's a great honor for us to have you here, and thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for this
Thank you,
most
Grace.
interesting discussion. Thank you, too.